So good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to St Matthew's Facebook page. And we've got a very special guest with us this morning. We've got Jordan McDermott, who is an ordinand and who is training to be a priest at Mirfield. Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning. How are we?
We're very well, thank you. We've got rain in Burnley. What's the weather doing in Muirfield? Is it the same?
Well, I'm actually in Bolton at the moment.
You're in Bolton, all right.
But it is, alas, still the drizzly stuff.
Yeah. So you're home from Mirfield at the moment. Is that indefinite or?
So I'm hoping to go back in the next couple of weeks or so, as that is my main base. Looking forward to seeing a few people that remain and see where all the levers sort of coming and going and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So have studies continued from afar, or what's the situation there at the moment?
Yeah, so we had to do sort of university carried on. All the essays still had to go in, lectures still happened, just without a library. So we have sort of online resources, but being the Church of England, most of the stuff's in books, so it became challenging at points. But yeah, I managed to get it all done, and the marks so far are satisfactory, shall we say.
Very good. That's good to hear. Well, thanks for coming on, Jordan. I wanted to, I'd been thinking about getting an ordinand on for some time, and I don't know an awful lot of ordinands, but you did darken the doors of St Matthew's not too long ago, and I thought,
I did.
There's a young person that might consider coming on, so thank you very much for doing that. So,
my pleasure.
But perhaps just give us a little bit of background about yourself, Jordan. You are obviously a young ordinand, so just go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself.
So grew up in Darwin, spent most of my life living in Darwin until I left for university. All of my family is from Bolton, one of the reasons I'm in Bolton now. So went to church at St Peter's in Darwin for a long time. Then went off to Bangor in North Wales to do a music degree. Managed to scrape through that one. Moved back to Blackburn and worked at the cathedral for a bit as a singer. And then during that process, sort of the end of university and being in Blackburn, I started discerning my call to the priesthood, which resulted in me being sent to London, which was the last place I ever wanted to go. But I really enjoyed that, and it was a really useful time for me. And
where were you in London? Where were you based in London?
So I was in Camden, so right in the middle.
And what were you doing there? Was that a musical role or?
No, so that was as a pastoral assistant.
Okay.
So I was helping at the church and basically working alongside the priest or a number of priests in that parish to help discern my call and where I wanted to be and what I felt I was being called to do.
So who would have been your vicar up in Darwin at that point?
So I had a few, but it was Fleur when I left.
Right.
Who's obviously still there now. And Father David Stevenson was the curate.
Very good. Who I know very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, know David very well. Yeah. So so how long ago would you say you were kind of thinking about maybe training for the priesthood? Is that recent, or has it been in your mind for many years?
I think it's been there a long time, and I think I suppressed it because I was going to go and be a musician, and that was what was happening, and there was no two ways about it. Loved my music. Music was all I did. Still love my music, but priesthood sort of never really went away. And like all good stories, it sort of all started in a pub, really. We were discussing with a few friends after Evensong, one person, what I want to do a bit more in church. I want to do some reading. I said, well, don't tell anybody. But I've been thinking about being a priest, and possibly going down that route. And then, lo and behold, the priest walks in. First thing that gets blurted out, Jordan wants to be a priest. and I've never really got off the hook since.
Just going back to your kind of love of music, Jordan, what kind of music do you have? Do you like all kinds of music, or is there a particular genre that you're very fond of? Or?
So I'm a classically trained violinist primarily, and also play the bassoon, which is like a big wooden clarinet, if you like. And sort of whilst I was at university, unfortunately, I got a wrist injury, which meant that I couldn't play for ages, and stumbled across singing really, and now I'm mainly a singer. Which involves spending a lot more time at the cathedral where I worshipped in Bangor. And that's one of the things that sort of led to another, and from just singing at services, then turned into going to the daily offices, going to the Eucharist more, and then ending up joining in and leading those as well.
Yeah. So how long was it since you would have been at Bangor, Jordan?
So I've had 2 years at Theological College now, a year in London, a year in Blackburn. So I left 4 years ago. Started 7 years ago. That's quite a long time ago now for me.
Yeah. I was just wondering, I have a friend who lives near Anglesey, Reverend Richard Adams. I was just wondering if your paths had ever crossed, because he did a bit of NSM stuff at the cathedral. Does that name ring any bells? No?
Not knowingly, no.
No, okay, fair enough. Lovely. All right. So let's just a bit about your family. So are you single chap, or are you in a relationship, or?
Yeah, so fortunate enough to be engaged to a lovely lady. We're getting married at the end of next year, Becky. I have a younger brother. Mum and dad still live in Darwin, although they're moving soon, possibly. They've been looking for a long time.
Right.
Who knows when that'll ever happen.
And just tell me to shut up if I'm being nosy, but was Becky on the scene when you were in the process for training, or?
Yeah, so I met Becky whilst I worked at the cathedral.
Right.
So she's seen enough, going through the whole BAP process.
Yeah.
That little delight that everyone has to go through.
So just tell our viewers a little bit about the BAP, Jordan, because I mean, us in the game, as it were. We the BAP is short for Bishop's Advisory Panel, but some people who'll be watching this will just think, "What's he talking about? A BAP?" So just perhaps explain that to our viewers.
No problem. So there's quite a big process to get to the BAP, and there's a series of interviews that you have to go through, and suggested placements, and a whole process, which took me a good couple of years to be able to get to the BAP. So you do what they call like a diocesan version, which is 3 interviews with various important people from around the diocese who decide whether or not you're allowed to go to the BAP. And then the BAP itself is a 3-day residential where every inch of your life gets examined, and you get interviewed and watched how you do things and how you interact with people, and whether or not they think you'd be suitable.
And where was your BAP? Was it Shalford, or was it somewhere else? Or?
So I was sent off to Ely.
Right, okay.
So nice to see Ely. I've never been before. Not a part of the world I've ever been to, really. But lovely place, and I have, luckily, fond memories of my BAP at Ely. I really enjoyed it. And bizarrely, I think I'd probably go and do it again if they asked me to.
Well, I had the fortune or misfortune of doing it twice. So, and obviously the second time was much more joyful than the first. But they are, I don't know if you agree, but they're quite surreal experiences. Like you say, you are being watched from morning till night, aren't you?
Yeah, it is bizarre. I mean, even from how you interact at the dinner table, water jugs are strategically placed. Are you going to offer drinks,
yes,
or are you going to receive your water? And
yes,
the advisors move around and chat to different people. It's very bizarre.
Yeah. Did you have to wait long after the BAP for hearing whether you'd been recommended or not? Because in my day, they were still using snail mail, and there was no internet communication. You have to wait for the letter to drop through your door.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different for me, because obviously I was going through the process with Blackburn Diocese, but I was still living in central London. So normally, I think you're invited to go and have an interview with the bishop or the DDO who's sort of your boss as an ordinand or potential ordinand. But I had to suffice with a phone call because they felt it was probably easier than a 6-hour round trip. So,
do you remember your feeling when you got that phone call?
yeah, so that you sort of have an idea. So I think it's something like there's various processes that happen after you've finished and all the reports get written. And so there is a sort of ish timeline as to when you're going to expect to be contacted. And when I remember, I was very nervous. Even though I felt it had gone well, you never quite know. And obviously everything's on the line and you've put your heart and soul into it, as everybody does. But it was quite a short conversation. I was, Bishop Philip rang me and it was a lovely, joyful moment. And then Father David Arnold, who was sort of in charge of getting me to my BAP, he then came down to London the following week and discussed it with me.
Yeah.
So we did end up having a meeting.
Fantastic. Father David Arnold, for people who are watching, is vicary. Is it Adlington that?
St Paul's Adlington.
St Paul's Adlington. Yeah. I know Father David reasonably well. And then, of course, so from there, Jordan, then once you've been given the yes, it's all systems go. Had you already decided that Muirfield would be your place of training, or had you been to look at anywhere before, or did you wait till you got the news before you started that process?
No, so the advice I was given, and I think that is different depending on personal circumstance and things like that. But Muirfield at the time wouldn't take you to look round unless you already had a date for your BAP.
Okay.
Which I don't know if that's still the case. So I had to wait until I'd got a confirmed date of when it was going to happen. And then I was allowed to go and look at colleges. So I'd already seen St Stephen's House in Oxford as part of my sort of course and placement in London. I visited Cuddesdon in Oxford as well, the Oxfordshire countryside. And I'd seen those two first. And at that point I was going, well, this is, they're not quite what I thought they were going to be. I'm not sure, could I manage? Yes. But am I absolutely in love with either of these places? No. Maybe it's something I've done. Maybe I'm the weird one. I'm not going to fit into this training facility thing. And then the following, so I went to Cuddesdon Saturday, and then I went to Mirfield on the Monday. Because Mirfield wasn't my first choice going into it, I don't think, from sort of what I'd heard and what I'd seen. And then I arrived for my overnight stay, and so you do a sort of 24-hour period, day in the life of the college, and I couldn't get the smile off my face. I just absolutely loved it. It was just that feeling that that's the place. Even though going into it, I didn't think so. I knew within the first hour that that's where I was supposed to be.
Did that day include being with the brothers, or?
Yeah, so Muirfield is, I think their official phrase is something like a theological college like no other, which I think is very true, because they're on site with a monastic community, with the community of the resurrection, and we share worship with them in an evening and on Sunday mornings. And so I think, get this wrong, I think there's like 14, 15 brothers at the moment, who most of which live on site, and hold a sort of Benedictine-esque rule, have 4 offices a day, which are open to anyone normally. Sadly, at the moment, they're a closed community, as we all have to adjust. But we share evening prayer with them during the week, and Sunday mornings have the Eucharist together. Yeah.
Just for people who are watching, Muirfield is probably best described as being kind of near Halifax. It's not far from Halifax, is it really?
Yeah, it's just off the M62, literally a stone's throw, and it's sort of in between Huddersfield and Dewsbury or Wakefield, sort of on that thin band across the middle, West Yorkshire.
I was very fortunate. With training regionally, we had a week at Cuddesdon, and we had a week up in Durham, but we had a week in Mirfield, and it was, I've got extremely fond memories of Mirfield and have returned a few times. What's you have the joy of living there most of the time, obviously, in normal circumstances. What was that? Did it take a while to adjust to that, or did you find that you settled in really quickly, or?
Yeah, so it was a weird one because obviously I was moving from central London, in the bustling heart of the city, being constantly busy and constantly doing things, to quite a closed little place in West Yorkshire, in a little dainty town, which is a little bit smaller than Darwin. It's still got all the amenities you'd like to have, but it's very different. They've got large grounds, and you spend quite a lot of time exercising or whatever, walking about in the grounds. And really, because we're fully catered, there's no reason to leave. There's a trap. You can get very caught up and just forget what the real world looks like. I do try and, on a Saturday, get out to civilization. But I think in terms of a settling in period, everybody is so friendly. I think it would be hard not to have settled in quickly. It was a change, yes. But like universities, there's a sort of welcome week type experience. And that really helps get people into it.
Yeah. How many ordained nuns are there at the moment, Jordan, in residence?
25.
And is that pretty much full capacity?
It's approaching full capacity. All the single students live on site in the college itself, and there's a couple of guest rooms which are spare rooms. And then any ordinands with families and with children or who are married then live off-site in college-owned properties. So there is capacity to increase their capacity. But in terms of single students, certainly this year, it was pretty much full capacity. Yeah, they're doing, they grew on the year before and the year before that, so.
Yeah. It is a lovely place, and it is a big space as well, isn't it? It's got the gardens, and there is lots of, like you say, you don't really have to leave. But I think it's good to hear that you're getting off and seeing a bit of normality, whatever that is, when you can.
I think it's very helpful.
Yeah. And what about the studies? Was that? Did you fall into that quite well? I mean, obviously you've been studying music and you're taking up theology, which is slightly different. But how did you find that?
I'd never done any theology beforehand, really. I think I did RE or whatever it was, or RS at school for a bit, but never really done any sort of serious study of theology. So I was a bit worried about that side going into it. Fortunately, I think pending one result, I'm about to pass with a 2-1, which will be lovely. I think it was safe to say that academia is not my absolute strongest point. But the college is really flexible in supporting people, whatever they've come at it. There are people who will arrive at Muirfield for training who have no GCSEs, possibly, certainly no A-levels or a first degree. There are some people who come at it with 5 degrees, 2 doctorates, professorships in theology, and they have to adapt, which I think is a really difficult thing for them, to make learning challenging for those people who already have lots of experience in theology, and then make it accessible enough for people who are coming at it with nothing, like I was.
So I guess you've got a year to go, is that right?
Yeah, a year to go. Yeah.
So now you've been through that process of BAP and some training, and not too far away is the situation where you'll leave Mirfield and take up a curacy somewhere. How do you feel about that prospect now? You excited about that?
Yeah, mixed emotions. Excited, nervous. Obviously, things are still up in the air. Nothing is concrete on that front. I think I will feel better once everything's sorted and I sort of, right, well, I'm going to place A and start to get things in place for that. But at the same time, I'm going to be really sad to leave Mirfield lots of friends there. Hopefully we'll stay in touch spread amongst the country and Europe, because it's not just the Church of England, as strictly the Church of England, that you can train. We had now got pen pal in Bahamas, the American students, German students, someone's going back to Brussels. So it is quite an international flavour of community. And hopefully, after coronavirus and all that, we'll be able to go and spend time in these places and learn about different cultures as well.
When you think about curacy, have you got a kind of, is there an area that you'd like to look at? You're kind of thinking urban or rural, or have you got any thoughts on that? Or are you open-minded?
So I'm relatively open-minded about it. They do say that if you make plans, God will just laugh at it and do something else. My plan was I was never going to London, and so that was the first place that I got sent after university. So I'm relatively open-minded about where I'm going to get placed, and just trust the powers that be and pray that all will be well and that it'll be the right place.
Yeah. What have been some of the joys of training? What have you really, when you reflect, what have you really enjoyed?
I think being part of that community is an amazing thing. I think it's one of the most difficult things about going to Muirfield, and being such a close-knit community and seeing the same people day in, day out, and learning each other's routines and what annoys us and what we like about people, who sits where at breakfast and all that sort of stuff. But I think there's a real joy in getting to know a group of people that well, and learning how to be humans with each other. And I think that combined with the space to worship and just be and learn about God and ourselves, and be a worshipping community, not just a group of people that live together, but a group of people that pray together and worship together as well, is, I'm very aware, something I'm not going to get back. This is the once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm really grateful to have been able to be a single student going at it and being able to fully throw myself into that.
Yeah, it is a wonderful thing, and it's something that I miss very much. It was one of the joys of training, was being part of a community that kind of understood what you were doing and what you were going through, and got some real treasured friends out of that. And when you said earlier that you knew almost within the first hour of being at Mirfield that was the place. What was it? What was it that you thought, yes, this is it? Can you pinpoint what it was?
Well, I think there was a real warmth. I was going at Muirfield with an expectation of what I thought it was going to be, and very quickly that became, well, actually, it is that, but it's so much more than that. There's an unwritten sort of sense that is Muirfield, the Muirfield way, which is unlike anything else probably in the world. It's got all its own peculiarities that I think you can go at. And Muirfield is not this high church beacon of Anglo-Catholicism. People train at Muirfield with all sorts of traditions and backgrounds, and leave in their tradition. It's about the journey along the way, and learning about yourself and God, and learning to how to adapt and fit that theology within X or Y. I think Muirfield is a really unique place, and it's really hard to describe it, because it changes every year, but at the same time it's really constant. And the brothers, just the reassurance that they pray every single day for the whole community and all the members of the college is remarkable. And to think, oh, well, I've had a really rubbish day, but actually there's been somebody praying for you, is a real joy.
Have you spent much time with the brothers while you've been there, or?
Yeah, so in my first term, I ended up spending quite a lot of time with one brother, picking apples in the orchard, which is something I'd never dreamt of doing, never picked apples before. there's little tasks like that seem, oh well, that's quite a menial task, but actually it's in those moments of sort of the hard graft that you make the best relationships, and that person has gone on to be my spiritual director, and you get little surprises along the way. They're an amazingly eclectic group of people, and they're all treasured by the college. They are, crazy, but the holiest people. They're really true and honest and holy. It's amazing.
I love coming to Mirfield. It's in the UK, I was fortunate to go to Jerusalem this year, but in the UK, the church at Mirfield, the upper church particularly, is just it just blows me away, and I love being in the company of the brothers and just watching and listening and praying with them. And they've got the most beautiful statue of Our Lady there. I find that statue absolutely beautiful.
I think there's a lot of space in church, and that really reflects how prayerful it is. They say it's one of those thin places where you can really feel the connection between what's going on in the worship and God, and feel the Holy Spirit there.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we've just got a few minutes left, Jordan. So you're kind of going into your final year. So what does that look like in terms of what have you got to do and kind of study?
I did my degree insanely in 2 years rather than 3, because somebody along the line thought that might be a good idea, which leaves my final year free from strict academic stuff, which I'm looking forward to. And hopefully I'm going to use that time to do more placements, get a broader experience of different people, different cultures, and really use that time wisely, and also to really embed a spirituality of prayer and use my time at Muirfield to be stress-free when it comes to academia, and really concentrate on being formed, which is why I'm there, and the college thinks that's the right thing for me to be doing. So
yeah, fantastic. And have you got any placements lined up for
so I did have a couple lined up for the summer, which would have been 2-month-long placements, which would have been amazing, but unfortunately they're not going ahead at the moment. So hopefully something will get resurrected next term, and still got the Christmas holiday, and we tend to do sort of one placement or 1 day a week, or potentially now more for me as I've got more time, where I'd be able to go into somewhere. So last term I did 1 day a week at Huddersfield Mission Cafe, which was an amazing experience, sort of serving the customers there, and meeting them in their need. And actually we learn as much from them as they might do from us, which is really good. So hopefully more of the same in terms of that sort of amazing experience for my final year.
Yeah. And the prospect of being ordained, is that something that excites you now as it gets ever closer?
Yeah, I think as every form goes in and every little step happens, it gets that bit more real. I was speaking to another ordinand from the diocese yesterday, and both of us sort of going, oh, it might be happening. Yeah, it's surreal, because there's been, now it'll be 5 years to get to this point, and sort of almost 6 years of training before you get ordained, and then 4 more years training. It's been a long time coming, and I think it's going to be, obviously really excited to finally be doing what I feel called to do. But at the same time, there's a big unknown out there.
Yeah, well, the roller coaster will continue for many years to come.
No doubt.
And the joys and the tears and everything. But it's been really great chatting to you, and great seeing that you've enjoyed the training period and Mirfield, which is a very special place in my heart, and I'm glad it's gone so well. And we'll be praying for you at St Matthew's and all your colleagues, particularly those who'll be ordained. In Blackburn, we've put them back, haven't we, till September? But certainly be praying.
Yeah, I think most people September now. Yeah.
Have you got anybody there from Blackburn this year, or
not this year?
No.
So there's me next year, and then there should be one after me as well, the following year.
Good to hear. Right. Well, Jordan, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'll get you back to your day in Bolton, down the road from here, and all the best. And we send our love and prayers from St Matthew's. So thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for talking to me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.